Some movies are incredibly honest about what they are from the very first frame. You see a dark hallway and a flickering light and you know you are in a horror film. But then there are the ones that let you misread them. They almost want you to. They open with a wink, a bit of a musical beat, maybe a joke.
Why is this taking so long? For God's sakes, you guys are so incompetent.
It's an invitation to have a good time. The rhythm tells you to relax because hey, this won't hurt. And then almost politely, the film starts tightening the room around you. The laughs don't go away, they start sharing oxygen with something a lot heavier. That's the experience of one battle after another. On paper, sure, it's a musical or a comedy, but watching it is something else entirely.
I need to find my daughter.
Well, then call us back when you have the time.
Did you just...
It uses humor the way people use denial, and it uses music the way you breathe when you are trying not to panic. By the time you hit that car chase in the climax, there is no doubt where you are. Now before we get ahead of us, let's be clear. This isn't an awards recap. I just want to talk about why this film manages to hold our attention the way a world-class thriller does, even while it's wearing the mask of something much lighter. The reason this film lands isn't because it's important in some grand cinematic sense. It lands because it's accurate. It's accurate about how we actually act when we are scared. It's accurate about how comedy shows up uninvited right next to grief. And it's accurate about what momentum feels like you are when you're trying to outdrive your own consequences. So today, let's look at the real engine of the film, its emotional structure, its absolute mastery of tension, and the way it builds patiently, deliberately toward a climax that doesn't feel like a spectacle, but more like an inevitability.
Thank you, Sensei, thank you! God damn it! Viva la revolution!
Look, the musical comedy label is technically true, but emotionally it's a total misdirection. The funniest moments here aren't punchlines. They are pressure valves. They just let out enough air so the story can keep tightening without the audience snapping. It's that specific kind of laugh. Not because something is silly, but because the truth is so sharp you have to flinch. This is how the movie builds tension. It doesn't need constant noise or a villain jumping into the frame. It just relies on the feeling that the next conversation might go horribly wrong. It's not chasing you with monsters. It's chasing you with the next thing you have to deal with. The next bill, the next betrayal, the next time you realize you are still you, just in a different room. I have thought a lot about the title itself. It doesn't describe a specific plot point. It describes a condition. One battle after another is that specific, exhausted feeling of waking up and realizing you are already behind. Those lessons you think you've finally learned only to realize you have to relearn them all over again the second things get stressful.
If you don't give me the rendezvous point, I swear to God, I will hunt you down and stick a loaded hot piece of dynamite right up your.
Most movies promise transformation like it's a destination you reach and stay at. This film treats it more like a weather system. It comes, it goes, it clears up, it returns. Sometimes it leaves damage, sometimes it's a relief. That worldview changes everything about how we watch the story. If life is just one battle after another, then the goal isn't to win forever. The goal is to keep moving without pretending you are invincible. This is why the humor never feels cheap. It actually underlines the emotion. And when the music arrives, it doesn't feel like a performance for the audience, it feels like a leak. It's a truth that's slipping out in a melody because it simply couldn't survive as a piece of dialogue. We are used to a certain kind of tension in movies. You know, the kind that comes from speed, quick cuts, loud sound design, a ticking clock. But the tension in one battle after another is much more patient. It comes from a sense of absolute control. The film has the ability of holding a moment for half a second longer than you can expect.
Sensei, please!
Courage, Bob. Courage.
That's it.
It lets a smile sit on someone's face just a beat too long until that smile starts to feel questionable or even threatening. When a film does that, your brain starts working overtime. You stop being a passive observer and you start scanning the frame. You start anticipating. The movie effectively turns you into a participant. It keeps you hooked not by rushing you, but by inviting dread. Even in the scenes that look light on the surface, you can feel the subtext tugging underneath.
Who's this?
Oh, they're just my friends.
Now, is that a he or a she or a they?
It's not that hard. They, them.
Okay, I just want to be polite.
So when the movie eventually turns towards overt kinetic intensity, it doesn't feel like a sudden genre shift. It just feels like the truth is finally catching up to the body. This brings us to the car chase, and we need to stay here for a minute because this sequence is a masterclass. Usually a car chase is designed to overwhelm you. It's a sensory assault of fast cuts and engine noise that eventually just blurs into impact. But the chase in this film plays by a different set of rules. It isn't just about adrenaline, it's about tension as an atmosphere. Think about the setting, this open, desolate stretch of land. You've got these rolling hills and deep dips that are constantly stealing your line of sight. It's a landscape that is beautiful in the way emptiness can be, but terrifying because there is literally nowhere to hide. What makes it feel climactic isn't just the speed of the pursuit, it's the geometry of visibility. Cars appear and then vanish over those crests like thoughts you're trying desperately not to have. And the terrifying part is that you won't know until you are already committed. The filmmaking really leans into this hypnotic quality. The camera often sits incredibly low, right next to the road, so you see the asphalt rushing under you like a conveyor belt. The beats of the tension aren't built solely by what you see, they are built by what you almost see. A vehicle reappears, then disappears, then reappears again. The film trains you to scan the frame the same way a driver frantically scans their mirrors, and the sound design is so smart here. It doesn't drown you in the noise. Instead, it makes specific sounds feel like signals. There is a rhythmic pulse that tightens, then loosens, then snaps back the moment the threat returns. That push and pull, that's the real car chase. And because the sequence is staged with such a clear spatial rhythm, it becomes a pattern you can actually feel in your chest. By the time it's happening, you realize that this musical comedy has been quietly practicing the language of suspense the entire time. This is the movie finally cashing in every single ounce of tension it's been saving up. If you really want to understand why this movie feels both entertaining and deeply stressful, look at what the writing actually allows the characters to do. They rarely say exactly what they mean. They approach the truth indirectly, through humor, through deflection, through performance. That's what people do when they are afraid. That's why the musical and comedic elements don't feel like decorations on top of a story. They are strategies for survival. Comedy is the armor, music is the exposure, the joke is the character insisting they are fine, while the song is the admission that they are definitely not. Once you see that pattern, you realize the film has been building a very specific kind of emotional suspense all along. You aren't just waiting for the bad guy to catch up, you're waiting to see when that armor is finally going to crack, and when the truth is finally going to be said without a costume.
Say it. Say it, baby.
Love you, Bob.
Love you too.
So yeah, on paper, one battle after another is a musical or a comedy. It's been celebrated in those categories. But the reason why the film actually sticks with you has nothing to do with those labels. It sticks because it understands a very modern, very specific kind of exhaustion. It's a kind where you aren't fighting one massive cinematic war. You're fighting 100 small ones, back to back, with no clean finish line in sight. When the film finally puts that feeling on wheels and turns dread into motion in that chase, it doesn't feel like a genre pivot. The story is finally revealing what it's always been. It's a movie about persistence. It's a movie about momentum. It's a movie about consequences. It's just one battle after another. If you found this video insightful and are interested in watching more, check out our video on Christopher Nolan's Odyssey right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.